Goldfish memory. How many times have you heard someone tell you your memory is like a fish's memory, meaning that you forget everything very quickly? This common belief says that goldfish only have a 3-second memory. They swim around the aquarium, forget everything, and then start all over again. It might sound funny, but the truth is that it is completely wrong. Goldfish can actually remember things for several months. Scientists have conducted experiments where they trained fish to press a lever in order to get food. When they tested them again weeks later, they found that the fish still remembered the same action. Some studies have shown that a fish's memory can last for around 5 months, which is even longer than the time most of us stick to our New Year's resolutions. But why do we still insist on believing that fish are forgetful and unintelligent creatures? The reason might be that if we admit a fish can actually remember living years inside a small aquarium, we might start feeling a little guilty. But when we say, no, it forgets everything every 3 seconds, we can comfort ourselves and think, poor thing, every time it swims around the aquarium, it must feel like it has entered a brand new luxury home. But the reality is different. The fish does remember everything, and the aquarium is still the same small and boring place.
The Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is the only thing that can be seen from space. We have all heard this statement, and many people believe it is a scientific fact, but the problem is that astronauts themselves say it is not true. The Great Wall of China cannot be seen with the naked eye from low Earth orbit. But why? Because compared to the vast size of the Earth, the wall is extremely narrow, and its color blends with the surrounding mountains, soil, and rocks, making it very difficult to spot. In contrast, things like large cities, massive highways, and human-made areas are much easier to see from space. This misconception actually existed even before humans traveled into space. People assumed that something this massive must obviously be visible from such a great distance, but space is incredibly far away, and the wall is incredibly thin. Imagine trying to find a piece of dental floss lying on the ground while looking down from an airplane. It would be almost impossible. The Great Wall of China is undoubtedly one of the most impressive structures in human history, and there are many reasons to admire it. But the idea that it is the only human-made structure visible from space is nothing more than a myth.
Bulls and the color red. Bulls go crazy when they see the color red and completely lose control, right? For years, we have seen in cartoons, movies, and bullfighting shows that a matador waves a red cloth and the bull angrily charges towards him. But the truth is a little different and even more surprising. Bulls cannot actually see the color red. They have a type of color blindness and can mainly detect blue and yellow colors, while red appears to them as something closer to a dull brown or a faded gray color with no special meaning. So what actually makes the bull attack? The problem is not the color itself, it is the movement of the cloth. When someone quickly waves a piece of fabric in front of the bull's face, that movement becomes irritating and provoking for the animal. It doesn't matter what color the cloth is. If you waved a bright neon green cloth in front of it, the bull would probably react in the same way. The red cloth was chosen mostly for human audiences because it looks dramatic and attractive, and it also appears better in performances and videos. For years, we have unfairly blamed the color red and given it a power that it simply does not have. The bull doesn't care about the color. It just wants someone to stop waving a piece of cloth in its face. Viking horned helmets. We all know the image of Vikings with large horns on their heads. This is an image that we see in almost every movie, cartoon, and even Halloween costume. But real Vikings never actually wore helmets like that. There is not even a single historical or archaeological piece of evidence showing that a Viking helmet with horns was ever found. So where did this idea come from? This myth mostly came from opera costume designs in the 19th century, especially from the works of the famous German composer Richard Wagner. Costume designers at the time thought that adding horns would make the warriors look more terrifying and powerful. Later, artists repeated this image, and Hollywood also loved the idea. As a result, a completely inaccurate image of Vikings became stuck in our minds. If we think about it logically, a helmet with large horns would be a terrible design in the middle of a battle. Those horns could easily get caught on an enemy's sword, throw off the warrior's balance, or even give the enemy a perfect handle to grab and control their head. Real Viking helmets were simple, practical, and designed for one main purpose: protecting the head during battle. Those horns were nothing more than an exciting cinematic invention, not a real part of Viking history.
Napoleon was short. Napoleon Bonaparte, the brilliant French emperor, a man we often imagine as short, angry, and full of insecurity. But the truth is that Napoleon was not as short as people think. His height was actually considered completely average for his time. Napoleon's height is estimated to have been around 5 feet 6 or 7 inches, which placed him roughly within the average range for men of that era. So where did this image of a small, angry man come from? The story was mainly the result of British propaganda against him. The British were Napoleon's enemies, and for years they portrayed him in newspapers and cartoons as a short, aggressive man with an inferiority complex. The image was repeated so many times that even after around 200 years, many people still believe it. Another reason for this misunderstanding was the difference between French and British measurement systems at the time. When Napoleon's height was converted into the British system, the calculation was incorrect, making him appear shorter than he really was. On top of that, Napoleon was often seen standing next to his imperial guard, soldiers who were deliberately chosen for their exceptional height. Naturally, when an average-sized person stands beside a group of very tall people, they will appear much shorter. The British repeated this joke so many times that history itself believed it for a long time. This is the power of propaganda and media imagery. A simple joke can remain in people's minds for centuries.
If you found this information helpful, please give it a like. Likes are what keep YouTube active and help you see the video. Hit the like button, champ, and let's continue.
Bats are blind. Blind as a bat. We hear this phrase all the time, and we usually imagine bats as poor creatures that fly through the darkness of night without being able to see anything. But the truth is the complete opposite. Bats are not blind at all. Every species of bat can see, and some of them actually have very impressive vision. It is true that bats use echolocation, something similar to a natural sonar system that helps them understand their surroundings by sending out sounds and detecting the echoes that return. But that does not mean they don't have eyes or the ability to see. In fact, some bats, especially fruit bats, have extremely sharp vision and rely on their eyesight more than they rely on echolocation. So where did this myth come from? Probably because we see bats flying at night with fast and unusual movements, and we assume they are lost or confused. But they are not lost at all. Those quick and unpredictable flights are actually highly precise aerial maneuvers that help them catch tiny insects like mosquitoes in midair. They perform incredible acrobatic movements that many of us cannot even imagine. Bats are not blind. They are simply showing off their amazing flying skills right in front of us.
The myth of using only 10% of the brain. Humans only use 10% of their brain. This is one of the most famous misconceptions about the human brain. According to this myth, if we could activate the remaining 90% of our brain, we would gain extraordinary abilities like incredible mental powers, the ability to control objects with our minds, or even superhero-like abilities from movies. But unfortunately, that is not how reality works. Brain scans show that we use almost every part of our brain. Each area of the brain has specific functions, and different regions become active at different times. It is true that all parts of the brain are not working at maximum intensity at the same moment, but throughout the day, almost the entire brain is involved in different activities. There is no hidden, unused part of the brain waiting to be activated, so it can suddenly turn us into superhuman beings. This myth probably started from the words of a psychologist named William James. He said that humans use only a small portion of their potential abilities, but over time, people changed the meaning of his statement and incorrectly connected it to the idea that we only use a small part of our brain. Your brain is already working at full capacity right now, although there is one real problem. A large amount of your brain's energy is spent thinking about strange and unnecessary things, like what you should eat for lunch today, or remembering an embarrassing moment that happened years ago, maybe back in 2008. So don't worry about unlocking the remaining 90% of your brain. That hidden part simply does not exist.
Einstein failed math. Every student who does poorly on an exam sometimes comforts themselves by saying, "Even Einstein failed math." But this is one of the most famous myths in the history of education. Albert Einstein was not only good at mathematics, but he also showed exceptional talent in the subject from a very young age. By the age of 15, he had already mastered advanced concepts like calculus at an age when many people are still struggling with basic math. So where did this rumor come from? The problem came from the difference in the grading system used at the school Einstein attended in Switzerland. At that time, the number 1 represented the highest grade, while the number 6 meant failure. Later, the grading system changed, and the order was reversed, meaning that 6 became the best grade and 1 became the lowest. When people looked at Einstein's old school records and saw the number 1, they assumed he had failed. But in reality, that number represented his excellent performance. When Einstein heard this rumor as an adult, he laughed at it and explained that he had never failed mathematics. In fact, even as a teenager, he was solving problems that were difficult for many of his teachers. So, if you get a bad result on a math exam, the best thing to do is study harder and practice more, because Einstein was never proof that poor grades can be excused.
Carrots improve your vision. Eat carrots so your eyes become stronger and you can see in the dark. How many times have we heard this sentence from our mothers? Since childhood, we have grown up believing that if we eat lots of carrots, we will develop night vision like cats and never need glasses again. But the reality is a little different. Carrots contain vitamin A, and this vitamin is very important for eye health. However, carrots cannot give you extraordinary night vision or fix vision problems. If your eyesight is weak, eating carrots will not suddenly make you throw away your glasses. So where did this myth come from? This belief was actually the result of a military deception during World War II. The British Royal Air Force had developed a new technology called radar, which allowed their pilots to detect and target German aircraft with incredible accuracy, even in the darkness. To keep the secret of this technology away from the Germans, Britain spread a fake story. They announced in newspapers that British pilots ate large amounts of carrots and that this was the reason they had amazing night vision. The Germans believed the story and even started giving their own pilots more carrots. But ordinary people believed the rumor, and the myth has survived until today. So yes, carrots are good for your eye health, but they are not going to turn your eyes into lasers or give you the ability to see in complete darkness.
Ostriches bury their heads in the sand. This image has become a worldwide symbol of avoiding reality and ignoring problems. We even use it to describe people by saying, "Don't act like an ostrich. Don't bury your head in the sand." But the interesting thing is that ostriches do not actually do this at all. What ostriches really do is sometimes lower their heads toward the ground to check on their eggs, which they lay in shallow holes, or to search for food. From a distance, it may look like their heads have disappeared and are buried in the sand. Sometimes, when they sense danger, they also lie flat on the ground and keep their heads close to the surface to blend in with their surroundings and become less noticeable. But this does not mean they are afraid or foolish. Ostriches are extremely powerful animals. They can run at speeds of around 70 kilometers per hour, and their strong legs can deliver kicks that are very dangerous to predators. They also have claws that can seriously injure an attacking animal. An ostrich does not need to hide itself. In many situations, it is actually the one that intimidates others.
we only gave this bird a reputation for being cowardly and foolish because we misunderstood what it was really doing from a distance. The ostrich probably deserves something more than anything else, an apology and a little correction to its public image.